think I labeled it right. John 12:27. Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. But for this purpose I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. So, Jesus says that, he says, should I pray that I should escape this? Should I be praying that I should not have to experience these things? Jesus's purpose was going to have some pain involved. It was going to have excruciating pain involved. It was going to be unpleasant. But Jesus had that attitude, right? If a grain of wheat falls and dies, it'll produce much more. And so he said, no, I'm not going to pray that I should be removed from this. I'm not going to say, Father, save me from this hour. I'm going to say, God, be glorified. It's the real voice of a martyr. It's the voice of someone who's given up their life and chosen not to live for themselves and just realized, Lord, whatever happens, be glorified. You be glorified, God. And whatever happens to me, it's okay. And so we see the heart of Jesus. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven saying, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. Then the people who stood by and heard it, that it had thundered. Others said, an angel has spoken to him. Jesus answered and said, this voice did not come because of me, but for your sake. Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. And I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all peoples to myself. This he said, signifying by what death he would die. Now you'll notice in verse 32 that the word peoples is italicized, right? And when we see italics in the Bible, in the New Testament, that means that the word was not there in the Greek, right? That someone added it, a translator, people who take the Greek and they translate it into English for our Bibles, and it's supposed to bring more understanding, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it makes it more confusing even. And I think just leaving it at all makes more sense, because I think that's what the Bible's saying. He draws all unto himself. It's the cross. When Jesus goes up on the cross, signifying by which way he would die, the cross draws all people to Jesus. It's the message that God came to die for us. It draws us all in. And it is great to pair this verse in chapter 12 back with the stuff we looked at in chapter 6. Unless the Father draws. Well, here's where he's saying, hey, I'm drawing all people unto me. I'm drawing everyone. And it's a good reminder that I do believe it's the goodness of God that draws men unto repentance. I wouldn't have decided just to get good one day all of myself. It wasn't for the message of the cross. If it wasn't for the fact that I knew there was a God who loved me and sent his son to die for me, that there was something worth living for. There was something worth changing for. And that I had a hope. And so he says he draws all unto himself. But they understood this being lifted up. Maybe the phrase just wasn't common to be used aside from crucifixion, because it signified the death, and the people obviously understood something about those words, because the people answered in verse 34, saying, we have heard from the law that the Christ remains forever. And how can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is the Son of Man? And so they're trying to figure out, well, who's the Son of Man if you're going to be lifted up and you're the Christ? And they're trying to put two and two together. Verse 35, Jesus said to them, a little while longer the light is with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. He who walks in darkness does not know where he is going. While you have the light, believe in the light, that you may become sons of light. These things Jesus spoke and departed and was hidden from them. And so he kept on telling them to believe while they had a chance still. while he was still there. And I believe very much so that that generation was held probably to some of the highest standards of any generation. No other generation had God walk among them. And so there were a lot of strong rebukes that Jesus gave, talking about how if people rejected God in the flesh, they weren't going to get many other chances to receive God. God continually reaches out to us, trying to woo us and get our attention. But these guys had God in the flesh there. And so he's saying, become a son of the light while the light is still here with you. Verse 37, but although he had done so many signs before them, they did not believe in him, that the word of Isaiah the prophet might be fulfilled, which he spoke. Lord, who has believed our report, and to whom has the Lord of the arm been revealed? Therefore again they could not believe, because Isaiah said, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, lest they should see with their eyes, lest they should understand with their hearts, so that I should heal them. These things Isaiah said when he saw his glory and spoke of him. Yeah, and that latter quote right there, that would have been from Isaiah chapter 6. And so it's when Isaiah sees the Lord and he experiences God. It's the idea that he experienced God and he prophesied these things. And now these people are seeing God. They're experiencing God. And yet they're still rejecting. Their eyes are closed. Their hearts are hard. It's amazing on how hard some people's hearts can be. Hardened by sin, hardened by their own lustful desires, that they want to do things their way. They don't like a God who tells them that they can't do it their way and also worship him at the same time. And so they had hard hearts. Verse 42, nevertheless, even among the rulers, many believed in him. So it's contrasting now. Many of the regular people weren't believing. Many did. But of the ones you'd least expect to believe, it says, many of the rulers believed in him, but because of the Pharisees, they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the synagogue, for they loved the praise of men more than the praise of God. So it's talking about those who do put their faith in Jesus, but there's a fear of man, and it's a stumbling block. And so they never become bold about their faith. They never speak about their faith. And there are people who have a saving faith, and they're not vocal about it. They don't speak about it. They never really grow because they don't go out and do the things they ought to do. You know, I can't imagine growing without going to church, without going and gathering with the other Christians. You can have a saving faith and be going to heaven and never attend a church in your life. But I can hardly imagine growing in your faith, becoming stronger, becoming more useful for God, becoming more pleasant to God without going and getting together with other Christians, being taught the Word of God, being useful and practicing all these things we know, being poured out and poured into, getting filled by God and going and filling other people. It's a great reminder, and it's something you watch, and I've seen it in the lives of many Christians. They get saved and they begin going to church to be grown and filled and taught. But as they mature in their faith, that's no longer the case. They then go to church to grow others, to fill others, and to teach. They might not be at the pulpit teaching, but we all get to this place. And it's something for all of us. It's not something that is just for a select group of people. Only these ones serve, only these ones teach, only these ones. No. Eventually we all get to the point where every one of us, we start fighting and clawing over who gets to go and talk to the new believers, who gets to go and talk to the visitors, who gets to go and try and witness to them. I mean, the pastor did his best, but I'm the one who's going to go in there and I'm going to finish the job. And we all begin to start pouring into everyone as we gather together. There's a powerful thing as we grow and God begins to use us more and more. But unless we go, we're not really going to grow. And so these people sadly were afraid, or they had other things, other issues, other conflicts that were holding them back from what God would desire to do in their lives. Verse 44, Jesus cried out and said, "He who believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And he who sees me sees him who sent me. I have come as a light into the world, that whoever believes in me should not abide in darkness. If anyone hears my words and does not believe, I do not judge him. For I did not come in the world to judge the world, but to save the world. He who rejects me and does not receive my words has that which judges him. The word which I have spoken will judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his command is everlasting life. Therefore what I speak, just as the Father has told me, so I speak." And so Jesus simply said, my whole purpose is to save. My whole purpose is to save. Jesus doesn't condemn anyone because we're condemned already. We've already been sinners. We've already rejected God. We've already gone down the path that leads to hell. The only purpose of Jesus Christ is to save us from that path and to make a way for us to be free from it. He's freeing us from sin, freeing us from the law of sin and death. He's trying to get us brought into life, into the fruit of God. And so that's what Jesus wants. He wants to free people. He wants to liberate people. He wants to create that equality and the brotherhood as being sons and daughters of God, made in the image of God. And so, yeah, beautiful thing, beautiful words, that what he desires to do. And now, we've finished through chapter 12, 13 on up to 20 is all the last 24 hours of Jesus' life. We're starting the Last Supper tomorrow, and it's from, Last Supper into the 14 through 17, the Holy of Holies of the New Testament. Then it goes into his arrest, his trial, his crucifixion, his resurrection. And 21 is a cool story, chapter 21, that we only find in John. That's later after he's resurrected. But it's the most, John spends more time focusing on that period of those last 24 hours of Jesus than the other gospel writers. And so it's good stuff, and it'll be a good time. I will see you guys tomorrow, 8 a.m. here on the Revival Church page. God bless you guys. Have a great day.